Moving on for now, Pakistan is playing host to the US and Taliban delegations. The visit follows Prime Minister Imran Khan's meeting with US President Donald Trump in New York last month on the margins of the United Nations General Assembly session. The US Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, is in Islamabad. So is the Taliban co-founder Mullah Baradar. They will remain in the Pakistani capital for the next few days, but it's not clear whether the two will be meeting. The US delegation is in touch with the Pakistani hosts. For its part, the Taliban delegation has held talks with the Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. A Pakistani media report saying that Mullah Baradar, who is the chief of the Taliban Doha-based political bureau, wanted to follow up on Imran Khan's comments ahead of his meeting with Trump in New York that he would try to convince the US president to resume the US-Taliban talks. Now, for the record here, the Pakistani Foreign Ministry said in a statement that the visit by the Taliban delegation would provide an opportunity to review the progress made under the US-Taliban peace talks so far and discuss the possibilities of resuming the paused political settlement process in Afghanistan. And as if on cue, a Pakistani media report described the simultaneous visits of the US and Taliban negotiating teams to Islamabad as a quote-unquote prelude to the resumption of talks. And if that indeed is true, what explains Trump's change of heart, you may wonder? Less than a month ago, remember, the president announced on Twitter that he has called off the talks after the Taliban claimed responsibility for killing an American soldier and 11 others in Kabul. The US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo amplified Trump's remarks by saying that the talks are quote-unquote dead. But the Taliban claims to have remained in informal contact with Washington after Donald Trump had called off the talks. The Taliban spokesperson, Sohail Shaheen, has been reported as saying that the group is open to a meeting with Zalmay Khalilzad. That's an important development there. The US administration, though, is tight-lipped about the purpose of Khalilzad's visit to Pakistan. Clearly, the start-stop talks should be seen as a tactic by Washington to extract maximum concessions from Taliban, including a permanent ceasefire and the Afghan government's participation in the peace process. Also, Donald Trump is clearly in a hurry to try and clinch a deal with the Taliban and end America's longest war, all in a bid to try and show that he is making concerted efforts in that direction as a part of his 2020 election campaign. But despite Washington's renewed push for a political settlement of the nearly two-decade-old Afghan conflict, Taliban is dragging its feet. Taliban opposed talks with Kabul. It has been linking any intra-Afghan process to a deal with the US first on withdrawal of foreign troops from Afghanistan. What is evident here is the degree of Pakistan's comfort with Taliban, a group which has drawn support and sustenance from successive Pakistani governments. At the same time, what would cause a degree of discomfort in some world capitals is Washington's decision to lean on Islamabad to try and clinch a deal with the Taliban. For here is a country which India describes as the epicenter of terrorism that is seeking to mediate between the US and Taliban for a peace process. The conspirators of both 9/11 terror attacks in New York and the 26/11 terror attacks in Mumbai were traced back to Pakistan. In fact, Pakistan is home to 130 United Nations designated terrorists and 25 terrorist entities listed by the United Nations. And that's not all here. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has publicly defended Osama bin Laden. And our Pakistan Bureau Chief, Anas Malik, has been tracking the very latest. Anas, there have been a string of discussions, several rounds of deliberations. Where do you see the talks headed at this point, if at all? And what have you been gathering from either side?
Well, Molly, the Taliban and US talks are now at a decisive point. It is safe to say, and what I can confirm, that a meeting is to take place between Zalmay Khalilzad, the US Special Envoy for Afghan Peace, and the 12-member Taliban delegation that is being headed by Mullah Abdul Ghani brother. Here in Pakistan, it is still unclear whether the meeting will take place in Islamabad or elsewhere. It can take place at the Bhurban hill station as well, as what sources have been indicating to us. But I can confirm now that the meeting is scheduled to take place between Zalmay Khalilzad and his 5-member team, along with the Taliban team. Now, this would be very significant because the modus of this, the modalities of this meeting is yet to be known, whether Pakistani side will be sitting in there or not. A while ago, the Pakistani Prime Minister, along with its Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa, Imran Khan and General Bajwa met the Taliban delegation, the 12-member Taliban delegation, at the Pakistani Prime Minister office. They arrived earlier today. Later last night, earlier today in the morning, and they arrived via Qatar through Doha, and straight away after the breakfast they went to the Pakistani Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where they held a composite dialogue for about 1 hour and 15 minutes with the Pakistani Foreign Minister. What is interesting is to see that the Pakistani spy master, DG ISI Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, he was also there in those talks. The Taliban were at the Pakistani Prime Minister office, and in all of these talks they have emphasized on reduction of violence. That is one, and number two, the resumption of dialogue between the US and the Taliban. In fact, I spoke to the Taliban's political office chief, office spokesperson, Commander Sohail Shaheen. He has been, he's sounding very desperate. It won't be wrong to say that he's sounding very desperate, or the Taliban are sounding very desperate to work a deal between the US and the Taliban. And they say that we stand by our commitment, we are ready for the deal, and we would want to take things forward. What is significant over here is the fact that Taliban has previously, they were scheduled to come in February, on the 16th or 17th of February, if I dated back correctly. Then they were earlier scheduled to come on 30th of August as well, but that didn't materialize. And now, after the cancellation of talks, where on one end the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan met the US President Donald Trump, emphasized on the resumption of talks, and now here they are. Zalmay Khalilzad is here, the NATO Resolute Support Missions Chief in Afghanistan. General
So a lot of back and forth on that front. We will, of course, keep a close eye on the latest coming in, and whether or not there is going to be some clarity on the horizon as far as the Afghanistan peace process goes. Thanks very much for those comprehensive updates.